Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into week number 7 of the Williamson Herald High School Report. I'm the prodigal sports editor, Joe Williams, back in Williamson County with Charles Pulliam and Josh Vardaman. And, guys, when I say glad to be back in Williamson County, you don't know how glad I am to be back. You guys have done a great job in getting us to week 7, and boys and girls, it's been a heck of a year.
Well, you say week 7, that's the thing that kind of gets me here. We're so happy to have you back, too, because we got playoff stuff to start worrying about now.
It's time to go to work. And Josh, I know you've been knocking it out the whole season too. We get to week 7. Folks think, boy, that's deep in the season for a 10-game season. But in all honesty, you want to play a 15-game season.
Yeah, there's a lot of season left here. A lot of these region matchups are coming down to the wire here in week 7. So from here on out, these last couple of weeks, it's going to be interesting. Got some teams coming up on some bye weeks in the next few weeks. So it's going to be interesting starting this week.
No bigger regional matchup probably than the one that will happen right here at Howard Gamble Stadium on the campus of Franklin High School when the Rebels host their crosstown rivals, Centennial. The Cougars come to town for the Battle of Franklin, and for so many years, Charles, this really wasn't a rivalry. The last 6 or 7, this has become a great rivalry.
Oh, we go back to last year's game, 24-21 Centennial win in just the last second touchdown to do that one. I mean, this was a great game to be at last year. This year, even more on the line, it seems like. Centennial technically in second place in the Region 6A right now. Franklin needs this win to have playoff hopes still alive, like a must win, which is just wild to think about because there's so much on the line here anyway, just in terms of teams duking it out because it's the Battle of Franklin, so just a wild one.
Josh, this game comes in with a situation where, as Charles says, Franklin has got to win. If they lose, they're basically out of the running for the region. And they got a great start after beating a very strong Hendersonville team last week. You've got Centennial coming in after that wild and crazy finish that Charles got all the video of over at Riverdale. This just gets the hair on the back of my neck standing up. It just has all the makings of a classic.
Yeah, it really does, and it better get the hair standing up on the back of your neck. This is an interesting game for Franklin. Not only do they need this in the region battle this year, they've lost 4 in a row to their rivals from just across the way in Franklin here. Of course, Matt Gacka, our player of the week this week for the Williamson Herald, so he'll have to have a good one if they want to beat the Centennial Cougars coming in here.
There's also a big one coming up just north of here. Independence travels to Brentwood. And, Charles, it's almost the same situation. Indy needs a win here.
Well, coming out of a bye, too, they're going to be a little more rested. But at quarterback, you're kind of interested on seeing who's going to lead the way. Independence went into this bye with a big win here at Franklin a couple weeks ago. And they went with Ethan Cash at QB there, and he did a great job. But they got Nathan Sisko as well. Who you're going to have running the offense should be pretty entertaining regardless. How do you contain TJ Sheffield? So that's the first thing that Brentwood's got to do. Bruins look pretty good, though, coming in, leading the way 3-0 in the region.
I remember Coach Scott Blade told me preseason, he said, I don't have a quarterback controversy, I have a quarterback rotation. And injuries, unfortunately, forced him into that rotation a little more, I think, than he wanted to begin with. But Josh, now they're in this situation where they got the win over Franklin. If they want to get back to the playoffs, they almost got to get this win.
They do. This is a must-win for them. And, yeah, they may have a quarterback controversy, rotation, whatever Coach Blade wants to call it. But on the other side, Cade Granzow for Brentwood has done a tremendous job leading the way for the Bruins. And Indy better bring their defense if they want to stop Brentwood in this one.
Then up across Brentwood from there, you've got Ravenwood back at home coming off of another big win over Father Ryan, and they catch Dickson County. Charles, Dickson County surprised some folks. They opened the season 2-0. Everybody got excited. It's been a little tough since then.
Well, and it's only going to get tougher, too, because going into Ravenwood, this is the 4th game of a 4-game homestand for the Raptors. They have just looked great. Last week, picking up that big win as well. Brian Garcia, quarterback, has just guided this team so well. The guy I like a lot, though, Brian Rice. 3 sacks in the first half last week. Just a phenomenal, underrated defensive player for this Ravenwood Raptor team. But they got a lot of those guys.
Coach Daniels told me last week, he says, I think Brian gets held every play. And I think we had a couple of pictures that showed he was getting held and it didn't get called.
Yeah, he's been a tremendous defender over there for the Raptors. Dickson County better bring some offense also. Of course, a few weeks ago, losing big to Brentwood, allowed Brentwood to score in the 40s. So this one could be a tough one for Dickson County coming over here.
Let's drop down to Class 5A and go south, if you will, where the Spartans of Summit Still very much in the battle for their regional title, will take on regional foe Franklin County in what should be a pretty good ball game. And if Summit wants to be, I'm not going to say it's not going to affect the playoffs, but if they want to be at the top of the region with Paige, this is a must-win.
Well, Spartans coming in 3-3, 2-1 in the region there, and they're not facing a Michael Burdick at Paige this week, so that's going to help a lot because Burdick snuffed out all the momentum they had in the first half with an 85-yard touchdown return on a kickoff after Summit put together a 10-play, 99-yard drive. Just when you think you might get that offense going in a 31-7 loss at Paige, snuffed away. So I think Coach Coleman and the crew there trying to just build on this, trying to get it going, trying to bounce back from a tough county loss at Paige last week.
Speaking of Paige, they got to go down to the pit in Lincoln County, and there was a time, quite honestly, when going to the pit in Fayetteville would strike fear in anyone's hearts. Now, fact of the matter is the Falcons have been doing some rebuilding, and Paige is on a flat roll.
Yes, they are. They are on a flat roll, and I expect them to just roll through Lincoln County again this week. Of course, 31-7 last week against Summit. As Charles said, Michael Burdick with two touchdowns, a kickoff return, and a rushing touchdown last week. Cade Walker throwing for 3 touchdowns for the Patriots. It'll be tough for Lincoln County this week.
Every time you think the county's going to have an off year, something like this comes up. Then you've got the folks at Nolensville going down to Tullahoma. Nolensville, they got beat by Brentwood. Everybody went, they got beat. Yeah, that's nothing to be ashamed of. They stuck with them and scared them for a while, Charles.
Well, a 4-2 team now overall for the Knights, but this was a Brentwood team that thought they were going to run away with it. 27-7 late in the second half, and Nolensville able to crawl right back in there, back-to-back scores, and really kind of just push the Bruins a little bit. And, you know, you got the double quarterback issue there, too. Brandon Wharton was injured early. Ryder Gilardi comes in. The sophomores played very well. And Coach Paul Derrick splitting time there at QB, which is kind of interesting. But some big names there for Nolensville and Tim Stayskull. We talked about Koutros last week. 5 straight interceptions going in this game. He didn't have one. Finally, which is just wild to say. 5 weeks straight, we're saying, hey, you got INT. Not this time.
Now, for those of you who've been around and you kind of recognize that name Koutros, you should. He is the grandson of the great Nick Koutros, who won a state championship at Overton back in 1981.
There's some history for you, my word.
Wow.
Let's go back. His dad, Chris, was the quarterback on that team.
Wow. Where are you pulling these stats out from?
I'm an old man. That's exactly where I'm getting them from. I am an old man. Speaking of old men who get things done, I'm going to pick on Chris Hughes a little bit. You like that? Chris is not an old man, though. Mr. Flag Football takes his team, and they'll be facing Sycamore in a game which, I think Sycamore's second in the region, but so far the Yellow Jackets have been so far above everybody that they've had to play. It's a little bit scary in that league.
Yes, it is a scary league. As you said, both teams coming into this one rolling pretty well. Fairview, of course, won 5 games in a row. They've scored 49 points 4 times this season. Of course, last week getting a 49-10 win over Greenbrier. This will be a really interesting 6-3A game. Sycamore coming in at 3-3 overall. But I like the Yellow Jackets in this one. They just have too much offensively with Cam Harris-Lusk, Logan Nardozzi. Of course, quarterback Brock Harris threw for 4 touchdowns last week. So the Yellow Jackets, man, that offense is just rolling right now.
He just reloads. He doesn't rebuild. He just reloads.
Well, you got the players to do it, too. I feel like we've had a lot of Cam Harris-Lusk over the years.
Yeah.
Has he been playing for 6 or 7 years, I think? Regardless.
I think he's taking a racquetball course.
Is it 18 touchdowns on the year for this kid now? Yeah, it's just incredible numbers here. But Brock Harris, the senior quarterback transfer coming in here, played a very efficient game last week. Threw 11 of 13, 188 yards, those 4 scores. 3 went to Blake Russell. But at the same time, he's just guiding an offense that just seems unstoppable at times. And Josh said it, 49 points and 4 wins this year. And they're averaging that, it seems like.
Yeah.
That's just their favorite number. If they get anywhere near 49, you're in trouble.
Man, can you imagine if they ever break 50? They'll never stop. They'll just keep going. In Division II, the number 1 team in the state in Division II, Brentwood Academy, looking for yet another state championship, goes on the road. They got to go down to Chattanooga and face Baylor. You just wonder, is this group ever going to trip up?
Yeah, I mean, they've won what now, 23 games in a row on this win streak. Of course, last week beating Knox Catholic, who won a state championship last year as well. But Brentwood Academy had zero issue with them winning 40-3. Tamario Pleasant just leading the way for a rushing attack for the Eagles that might be the best rushing attack in the state.
And the thing about it is, you don't hear his name a lot because he just goes out and gets the job done, and by halftime he's in an ice bath somewhere, just sitting back and relaxing. BGA's got to go on the road. They'll go up to Whites Creek and Charles after a tough one last week. I'm not sure I'd like to be in the Cobra's shoes.
No, and the Cobras coming in 0-6 in this one, struggling another year here at Whites Creek there. But for BGA, it's all about protecting the ball. They had 3 turnovers, very uncharacteristic of a Rock Baton football team last week, and a 27 loss at ECS. So just a tough game for BGA. How do they bounce back? This will actually maybe be a good one for them to try to get some of that confidence back.
I think maybe that long road trip might have had something to do with it, and depending on what time they leave in traffic getting through Nashville, it might be equally long this week. Let's take a look in Class A. It's GCA, Grace Christian going down to Moore County, and this is another one of those, Josh, where you've got to wind your way through the back roads to get to Lynchburg.
Yeah, I couldn't get there from GCA, so good luck. Get those phones out, get the GPS rolling for you Lions fans going out there. Of course, it's been a tough season for GCA this year. Last week losing to McEwen 69-36. Of course, they're 0-5, 0-2 in that region, so it'll be a tough one. Of course, like you said, they have a long road trip. Hopefully they can take some offense, maybe a little bit of defense with them this week too.
But, Charles, part of that is they graduated so many last year. They started out with, 25 kids, something like that this year. I mean, you're going to have those kind of years.
Well, and it's new kids coming in, too. So part of this, too, was, this is a brand-new school down there. One of their first big classes in sports, graduated last year, and now you got to regroup, and you got a bunch of young kids that are just trying to get introduced to the program. That's tough sometimes.
Another team that may well be fighting for another state championship, CPA. They're on the road this week. They've got to go to Lipscomb Academy in a great battle of almost neighborhood rivals. And, every time I think Lipscomb's about to get on track, something happens.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to get on track this week. CPA is rolling just like a few other teams we've mentioned already. Last week, 43-18 against Hillsboro, who, of course, played at CPA because the Boroughs don't have any home games this year. Led by Ryan Elledge, Noah Henderson, Andrew Madden, Sam West, of course, Kane Patterson, the Clemson commit. CPA just has a load of guys that they can toss at you. It'll be tough for Lipscomb Academy this year, who's only 1-5 on the year so far.
And the worst part about that, Charles, is it's not basketball season yet.
Oh, geez.
That's the worst part.
Very true.
All right. FRA has been on a roll. Franklin Road Academy, they are at home Friday night against Goodpasture in what should be another one of those Class A private school knock-em-downs.
Well, and the Panthers can move to 2-0 in the region here, too, as well. So after CPA knocked off BGA a couple weeks ago, there's a lot on this one for FRA to be able to kind of catapult in front there, move to 2-0 in the region. They looked pretty good last week with that 36-7 win. That's their 3rd win in a row. So great job by the Panthers, able to find some mid-season stride here.
Bill Whittemore, the former quarterback at Brentwood High School in Kansas, I believe, got things finally rolling over there. Yeah, everybody's practicing today, including the band. Last game we're going to look at, Father Ryan, after a disappointing run at Ravenwood last week, going to face off at home. They get to go back to Franklin Road and take on Innsworth, an Innsworth team that is quietly doing some good things.
They are. The Tigers right now 4-2, 1-1 in that region. Coming up against a good Father Ryan team, but they've just had tough luck with the schedule this year. Of course, last week taking on Ravenwood. This week they have Innsworth, like I said, 4-2, 1-1 in that region. Then they go at Brentwood, at Baylor, and then versus McCauley to finish off the season with a bye week thrown in there. Also, just tough sledding for the Fighting Irish to end this season.
Another thing I thought last week, Charles, was the depth might be just a bit of an issue for the Irish.
Well, you kind of saw that actually against Ravenwood. Ravenwood has all that size. They got a deep bench, and guys can play top to bottom. Second guys up are great right there too. And for Father Ryan, Coach Brian Rector, you don't see a lot of that. Seamus O'Connell kind of leading the way a little bit, but at the same time, just needs some help across the board.
All those games Friday night, and we'll be on top of all of them at the Williamson Herald between Josh and Charles and Doug Dyer and David Dawson and our great group of photographers, which includes Kendall,
Mickey Burnell. We're loaded up. We got some good help from Brian Ambrose, actually from Nolensville this week as well. We're just happy to have so many folks coming in. John Cross, as well. So we're loaded with the helpers for sure. Josh is our behind the scenes man. I tell you what, we got a nice little machine going here.
Tell you what, I'm awfully impressed with what they've done while I was gone. I'm afraid if I'd been gone another week, I would not be here. But fortunately, I am and just tickled to be a part of it. For Charles Pulliam and Josh Vardaman, I'm Joe Williams. Thank you so much for joining us on the Week 7 edition of the Williamson Herald High School Report.